Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the Circling Seattle Sports podcast. This is episode 123 of the show itself, Seattle Interview Series number 34. We're going to talk about Seattle Interview Series. This is somebody who's been in the area for a good amount of time, somebody I've, been to high school with, Mishael Powell, if we're going by full name, current University of Washington cornerback, one state at O'Day, all Metro, all state, I believe, if I can remember correctly.
Yep.
Uh, if you've seen it, if you follow not only O'Day or UW, you see that Meesh got put on scholarship lately. So that's a big deal. And it's, I was just talking to him. Really cool to see that after knowing him through high school, not actually knowing that he was going to go to UW until I saw him uh, make that official back in 19. So really cool to see that. Well, let's first off, how have you been? I mean, since that announcement, I'm sure that was a big deal. And I'm sure that the text and the contacts have kind of flown in. And I know I want to talk about that a little bit later, but just how has it been since then?
Um, it's been good. I mean, I'm very blessed. Let me start there. Thank God that like Coach DeBoer was able to watch the tape and recognize like my skills and stuff like that, and feel that he needed to give me an offer and stuff like that. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, no, overall I feel really good. It was we celebrated a lot that day, but I'm in this routine of just back to work. So back on my same schedule, working hard, getting extra work in, doing stuff like that. But no, I'm very blessed, and my parents, they've been really excited. I don't think it's fully hit me yet. I don't think it's hit me just yet, but no, I'm definitely blessed, things like that. So I would say I am feeling really good, but just still stay the course.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure this is a big moment, but also there's a lot of work to be done, especially, with the new staff and with a couple of your teammates leaving for the NFL. So we'll talk about that in a sec, but I want to start. Where did the athletic journey for you begin? Because obviously, if we look back to high school, you did more than just football, right?
Right.
So where did the athletic journey begin? Was it with football? Was it another sport? How did that really take off for you?
So I would say my parents joke about this a lot, and I joke about them too. I was really good at baseball for a while, and I would say my athletic journey started there when I was a kid. I played t-ball. I played for Seattle Central. That's a
Yeah.
league right by Garfield, and we play in Garfield, their play field. Yeah, I would say I started off with t-ball. Built up to baseball. I started football when I was younger, but I didn't like getting hit or I like really contact. But my friends played it, and my dad, he played for CAYA program, which got transferred to the Central District Panthers, the CD Panthers. So that's what I played for. So I played there just because my friends played, but I was really in love with baseball for a while. So I would say, yeah, it started off with baseball for sure.
So obviously this would help then. Did you play any other sports growing up? Obviously now knowing baseball. I think I remember, did you go out for baseball at O'Day at all? I think I remember hearing
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I made the freshman team, and I tried out my sophomore year, made JV, but that's funny how the story is. So we had a game. Our first JV game was on Monday, and how 7-on-7 football goes is it's during the same time as um, football, JV football. So we had a tournament at Rainier Beach High School, and I broke my wrist and I broke through my growth plate that Sunday with my game on Monday.
Oh,
So I broke through my growth plate and I had to get surgery. And just because I wasn't on varsity, the JV seasons aren't as long. So they're about, I would say, 6 to 7 weeks. And that's around the healing process of a broken wrist. So I didn't play baseball. I stopped playing baseball my sophomore year and then just locked it on football. But yeah, no, I would say baseball. And then towards the end of my senior year, I did a little bit of shot put. I did that for my last, but yeah, no, baseball and football.
I know that you mentioned your dad. I wanna touch on it. Reading about you, uh, can you describe growing up in a household with graduates, from Harvard and Columbia? I mean, there's a lot of knowledge in that house. So I
Yeah.
know that, not to skip O'Day, but when offers came around, there was some Ivy League interest. And I know that I read about there was no pressure at all. It was, make your own decision on it.
Yeah.
Growing up though, how was it, having that knowledge in the house and your parents as graduates from those schools?
Well, for a while, just I mean, I really appreciate my parents because they let me kind of just like, they didn't really, how do I explain this? They didn't put their like um awards and their accomplishments like on me. Like they kind of let me be a kid and play around and just have fun. And so for a while they had me on this plan of like going to O'Day and things like that. Like they had this plan for me, but I didn't know the importance of like the schools that they went to until I got to high school. And talking to my parents, like, oh, like I always knew, like, yeah, my dad went to Harvard, yeah, my mom went to Columbia, but I didn't know what that meant until going to high school and then talking about colleges and talking to my counselors, like, oh no, Harvard and Yale and Columbia, these Ivy League schools, these are like real deal schools. So I went back to my parents like, oh, you guys really like went to these schools. Like that's crazy. But no, for a while, like I didn't know the importance of it. And I would say that overall, they didn't really like shine that on me. Like they never was like, you need to be this smart. You need to get these grades. Like they always like, B's are above, like that, hopefully straight A's. Like that was always their goals. But they never would be like, if you want to go to Harvard, if you want to go to Columbia, you need to get these grades. They were never like that. And yeah, when you're talking about in terms of like me getting certain offers and then them saying like, kind of do what you want. I would say that was more on my mom's side than my dad. My dad, he was big on me going to Harvard. We went out for a summer camp out there, and it brought him back to old memories and stuff like that. So I think he was really sold on me, not just going to Harvard, but just to an Ivy League. So I had Columbia, Princeton, Dartmouth, and so he was just sold on me going there because he knew the experience and he knew what it offers like after, which I don't totally understand. But my mom was more on the side like, go where you feel comfortable. Like if you want to go to a certain school, like it doesn't matter. But my dad eventually hopped on board, once I committed and things like that. So no, I think they both did a really good job of not putting that on me of holding me to that standard of like, you need to go to an Ivy League school.
No, it is interesting to think about because obviously, I'm sure maybe in some households that is a lot of pressure, right? And maybe
Right.
it's instilled, but to hear no, it's like, hey, just there's the bar is set, but it's not set to where you're constantly got to be,
Right.
so that is cool to see that. So to transition to O'Day here, what brought you ultimately to O'Day High School, and how would you describe your experience there? Because I know it's a really interesting place for people who went there and
Yeah.
people who didn't. So
Most
how did you end
definitely.
up
No one will
there?
ever know. Yeah.
Yeah, how would you describe your experience at O'Day?
So I went to Tops K through 8. So they did a good job of kind of explaining like what schools, like their options that are in your district and things like that. Cause sometimes with certain schools, like if it's too far out, then you can't go. So my options were like Garfield, Cleveland, Seattle Prep, O'Day. These are certain schools. And I talked to my parents about it, and I actually went, let me rewind a little bit. Me and my dad on Friday nights used to go to a lot of basketball games. So we used to go, like, I used to see Garfield play all the time. I used to see Garfield play O'Day. I've seen O'Day play certain teams. I went to the O'Day versus Seattle Prep game at Seattle Prep. And we always play Seattle Prep during Halloween time. So it's like we do all the costumes and we like all this certain stuff, right? So I'm in 8th grade and I'm like, okay, like I like O'Day, like I'm starting to like it. And what sold me was me walking in the gym and just seeing like there's a bunch of all boys just standing in this big student section, yelling and screaming, going crazy, dancing, all these different costumes. They just seemed like they were having really a lot of fun. And I had a few friends that coached me in Little League that were at O'Day already. So they talked to me about it a little bit, but seeing that's when I kind of made my decision that this is where I wanted to be. So that Seattle Prep game, I would say that would be like 2014 that it was, or 2013, 2014. They were dancing. Everyone had these crazy costumes on. It was like crazy. And they won the game. And so it was just like a whole thing. And that kind of right there, I wanted to be a part of that eventually. So I knew like, okay, like this is definitely the school that I want to go to. And then from then on, my mom, she wanted me to go to Garfield just because like for a while I was locked in on Garfield, but my dad was the one that was saying like, no, he believes that O'Day would be the best decision for me. Like me specifically, knowing who I was, me, my dad, we talk a lot, car rides from sports games, stuff like that. So he sees kind of a different side of me at times than my mom does. So he was like, no, like I see what you're saying. To her, he was like, I see what you're saying, but like this school for sure is gonna like get you in order. And O'Day has like structure, and they're really religious, which was really important for my family. And yeah, so that's how I got there. So that's what was my decision. So now being there, O'Day, that I'll probably say that was the craziest. Like, that was so fun. Like, thinking back to like seeing how college was now. College isn't really as, it's not as structured. Like, you just go to class, then go home.
Yep.
Your teachers, they just talk to you and then give you the homework and leave, blah blah blah. But that, I can say, I personally feel like I had the best. Like, our class 2019 had probably one of the best like classes. It was right before COVID, so we got all of our 4 years.
Yep.
And the house system, it was like the second year of the house system, so they were starting to really go full go. So we had all these different like new games, and the teachers. We had Mr. Jackson was there. We had Mr. Walters who was teaching us. Like, we had all these teachers that I don't think the O'Day kids now never got to experience because those teachers had left.
Mm-hmm.
We had Miss Boteo. Like, we had the teachers that we had, we thought were really good, and they were just so engaging. Like, they really were genuinely, they wanted to educate you, but like besides that, like, they wanted to just see how you were doing, like everything. Like, they wanted to check on you. They just wanted to make sure everything was all right. And I really appreciated that. So I can't really say that, like, I just don't know anything different than that because I was at O'Day for those 4 years. So I can't speak for other people that say like, no, my teachers weren't like that. It's like, well, my teachers were. And that's just the teachers, the brotherhood around. Just, there's people that I was friends with that I never thought I would be friends with just because of like, we're just so different. But having these certain games and having these certain activities to where like you have to bond and just realize like, oh, we actually all have a lot in common. Like, we actually all are like it was just overall like just good. And there was really no like I don't know how other high schools, there really like no, there was no like bully. Like, no, like, oh, like, this is the big guy. Like, everyone saw each other as like equal. Like, I give an example of like, there's plenty of athletes that were in my class and that were older than me that they went on and played, but they were never to us. We were like, those are just like our brothers. Like, they were never like treated as superstars. And by their peers, but also by the teachers as well, because it can be a lot different if the teachers kind of are on you. But like Dean McGee, like, he didn't care what you did that night before. If you didn't come in with your shirt tucked in, things like that, hair needs to be a certain length, like, you were getting detention or you were getting sent home. So it was just, O'Day set a standard and just a foundation of what it is to be a man, and like how you carry that out. And what I think is very slick and how they did it is they never like blatantly said like, okay, this is how to be a man. You just go through experiences your 4 years, and by the time you're done, you're like, okay, like, I feel like I have a grasp before I step into college of like what it is to be a man. So I would say O'Day, and that I didn't even talk about sports. That's just like, I feel like sports is just like, that's a cool piece, but that's not what O'Day's for. Like, I know O'Day, we're big in basketball, baseball, like, we're big in every sport, but like, that is like just such a small fraction of what O'Day provides, and like what like the teachers bring, and what the staff brings, and what the people around you brings. And I would just say like, yeah, that was really good for me, and I feel like that helped me and like carry myself in a certain way when I'm around people. So no, O'Day, I 12 out of 10. When I have kids, they're going to O'Day. They have no choice. That doesn't matter. So yeah, no, I'm big on O'Day.
No, yeah, I mean, you touch on a few things that really hit home. I mean, obviously, us being in the same class, that makes sense. But
Right.
talk
Yeah.
about basketball, I really was upset at myself that I did not go to more of those basketball games, because I mean, you've got it. You've got, a bunch of different guys from all the different classes. And you're right on the court too. It's not necessarily like some football stadiums we go to where
right, you gotta be further back. Yeah.
you're right there. And I loved that
Yeah.
senior year. So I regret that I didn't go to more of those. So that, but like you were saying, it doesn't matter if a dude has a bunch of offers. Even when I visited, I think it was 19, right before this all hit, and I spoke to Paulo because I was there, and I said, hey, get an interview, and we were able to do that, which was cool, and I appreciate that from him. I mean, there's the jokes, whatever, he had a couple picks last night, he did this, but no, it's the same dude. It's your brother, and like you're saying,
most definitely
with the staff, like, I don't care if you've got an offer from Duke. I need you to have that shirt tucked, or you got to write So
Exactly.
it is, and especially that foundation you mentioned as well. Like you're saying with college, it's like, okay, lecture here, and now you're kind of left to, I mean, you've got stuff to do, but it's up to you to do it. So yeah,
Right.
no, I think you did a really good job of just kind of putting it all together. Um, can you talk about your time as a sprinter, and how that may have impacted you on the football field? I know that you talked about, doing shot put a little bit later as a senior, but as far as I'm correct, did some I think track work or sprinting work as well. Um,
Yeah, so I didn't this one thing I do regret is I was not as locked in as I was during track, because
mm,
I'm seeing how football is now, and like the speed of it, like, does help that, like, like running mechanics, and you know how to run and you are fast. So I would say that I can't speak a lot about it, but one thing I will say is very important. You can teach a lot of technique, you can teach schemes, but it's hard to teach speed. So one thing, like, if you run track, run track. Like, if you're choosing to run track, like, really lock in on that. I had good coaches, Coach Cook, Coach Beck, Coach Mall. I was just kind of in a different mindset, I was getting more ready for football, like for
mm,
college football in the spring, when I should have just really just locked in on track, and then transitioned to, like, okay, after the season, now let me get ready for football. But I do regret that. I do regret not fully locking in that, because I could have my junior and my senior year where I could have, like, ran track competitively and really just learned, like, what it is to run. So now I'm playing more of a catch up, which is, it's fine, it's just a part of my journey, which I'm perfectly fine with. But that's one thing that I would have told my younger self, that, like, if you're gonna run track, like, really run, because I promise you, in the long run, that's gonna, like, help a lot. So sprinting overall, when it comes to just all sports, like soccer, baseball, like, you can easily find your way on the field, like, young too, if you're fast. If How do I say, like, there's guys on our team now that are freshmen, like, they're fast, so they can find their way on special teams. They find their way, like, in a certain package, just because of their speed. It's not really like, oh, they're really technically sound, but it's just like they can run with this guy, or they can get down the field the fastest. So I would say speed helps a lot. It's not the all be all of being good in sports. That's a myth. Whoever says that about sprinting, like, you can be fast, or you can be moderate fast and still be dominant. There's plenty of people that are like that, but speed definitely does help for sure.
yeah, and I think it's important to note that I wanted to, look on that obviously because speed is a big thing, especially as a cornerback. But you mentioned it, if you've got the speed, you're going to get on the field. And somebody that I think is a prime example of that is Cyril Grayson, who's with the Bucks right now, who I think he was
Okay.
like a really great sprinter at LSU, had a couple stints with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Seahawks,
yeah.
and now
Hmm.
he's catching touchdowns from
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
Brady. So,
yeah.
it's I mean, like you said, I mean, if you got that speed and you're able to work on it, if you work on it, you'll find a spot on the field.
Yeah, most
Um,
definitely. It's like it's let me rephrase. It's a combination of both. That the person you listed, he I know who you're talking about, because I that he literally was just on, like, NFL Instagram game winning touchdown, like, maybe, like, last week. You also have to It's a combination of speed and having control. Like, when it comes to football specifically, like, you need to be able to be fast but control it. So,
yep.
because football is not just running straight. Like, if you're fast, like, okay, run track. But, like, soccer, baseball, like, it's about quick burst, getting in and out of your transitions, things like that. So speed, I would say speed gets you there, like, can get you on the field early. But you won't. That doesn't mean when it's all said and done, you'll be the guy, though,
Yep.
because there's still so many key things that you have to work on, like just being a DB, just getting in and out of your breaks, having clean feet, just turning the ball over, tackling. Like, there's so much more to it. But that's what I should have said. Speed is like that's the first star where it's like, oh, like, that's gonna make you pop. And then if you work on that, and then work on all your other skills, like, watch when it's all said and done, you'll be like, okay, like, this guy's real deal. So that's what I should have said, like that.
No, no, that's a good point out though. I mean, change of direction is such a big thing. And like you said, all those sports, I mean, yeah, like you said, if you want to turn track, fine, sure, run another straight line. But obviously there's so much more to everything that you listed, change direction, being able to stop and turn. So that is a good point out.
Yeah.
I want to do a couple of quick hitters here because this is like stuff that is up for debate around O'Day, no matter what year you are.
Yeah.
Favorite place to eat around O'Day? Because I
Ooh,
know that
that's
was
crazy.
always
Like,
a big deal.
I get excited even talking about that. It just takes me back. I would. I want to say Yoshino's, but I Fuzz Saigon. If let me say this, if you ever go to Fuzz Saigon during lunch hour and they give you this $10, it's for $10. All you need is $10. You can get double orange chicken, any type of rice. They have probably the best bubble tea. I would give it to Fuzz Saigon. Yeah, I would have to give it to them. Like they just had a full meal that you could get. Yoshino's is really good. It's like 1A, 1B. I'm gonna put it like that. I'm not gonna say like 1 and 2 because Yoshino's was you knew what you were gonna get at Yoshino's. You could switch it up at Fuzz Saigon. So that's something I would say. And you got like different flavors of like bubble tea. Like Yoshino's, you had to get water, or if you had to pay for soda, you could, but then you had to get water. So I would say the best. I would have to give it to Fuzz Saigon. I would say that was the best one. I don't know. Yeah, I gotta give it to him.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it's always something when I do when I talk to O'Day guys like Race or Milton.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, what's the spot? Because when it's always a thing, it's like no matter what that period is before lunch, it's like, all right, where the hell am I going?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If I don't have anything, it's like, okay, where the hell am I going? You know, some people like George's, but yeah, those Fuzz Saigon was just like, okay, there's a line, so you got to be out of there.
Yeah, you gotta. I used to go early. I would try to leave class 5 minutes early just so I make sure because they take so long to make the orange chicken again. But that's the best for sure.
And then did you have somebody that you would label as the funniest person from your time at O'Day? I mean, we had, at least in our class, I know we had a couple guys who were just, you know, they could just say something and it would be funny. But I mean, at least from your perspective, did you have somebody that you would?
It can be like a teacher or anybody or a student.
That's tough. Okay. How about you do one if you could do one, like a staff one and a student one?
Okay, staff. Staff, I would say Mr. Lotta. Mr. Lotta was funny because we would argue a lot, but he would make funny jokes and I could never like rebuttal because they were just like, it was always just a joke. And I'm like, man, that was a good one. And I have to leave like, damn, okay. Next time I'll come this turn. He always came with something. So I'd say Mr. Lotta, he's hilarious. Or Mr. Doyle. Mr. Doyle was funny. Student, I would say the funniest student. I probably say Luke Martin, but it wasn't by making jokes. He was just naturally kind of like, he would just do things. He'd just be like, Luke, like what? Like, how did that like process? Like, how did you think that? And I remember he used to get like mad about certain things. He would just really like get really mad. And like, that used to crack me up. Cause I'm like, Luke, it's not that serious, but Luke was funny. I give it to Luke.
I know you touched on it a little bit, but especially with talking about an O'Day brother of yours, are you able to describe the brotherhood in your own words? Because I know for some people it's different, but at least through Meesh's eyes, how do you view the brotherhood? And whether it's, through the alumni network, through the guys from our class, or even maybe, talking to some of the guys from younger classes.
Well, first I want to say that I think our 2019 class was a little bit different. I always feel like that. I think everybody may feel like that, but I just feel like ours was, I think, to bring it up briefly, I think the loss of Vlad, rest his soul and things like that. I feel like that was a moment that kind of like brought everyone even closer than we could imagine. I think before, like, we all were close, like, yeah, like we're brothers, like, yeah, like we're all in the same class, but like with him, with all that happening, I think that brought like just everyone closer. I remember that day crying and just being sad. And I could just tell like this certain class, like we just all like we're just together, like tight. So I would say the word I would use would be like trusting, like being able to kind of drop your guard and being able to like show emotion. I think if you are around men a lot, and sometimes like when men teach their younger like kids or brothers and nephews, is that you need to be tough at all times. Like you don't cry. Like you need to be a man. Like that's what it is to be a man, which is so far from the truth. Like men need to show their emotion. So I think I would say trustworthy, like to define our class was like, we were able to drop our guard and like to anyone around and like be able to talk to each other about things and cry on each other's shoulders, literally cry, like hug each other. Like I would say, yeah, And I don't know if other classes can say that, but I would say definitely trustworthy would be the word.
You know, you bring up something, you bring that up, and I've got over, I mean, in the studio down here, I've got my backdrop, but I've got a picture of our 2017-2018 football team.
Oh, that was the year. That was
Yeah.
a year.
And I still have, I know the soccer team, I was the manager of the soccer team that year, and we all got armbands that said VB on it. And
Yeah.
I've got Vlad's funeral packet, and I have it over in my O'Day
Yes.
section.
Yep. I got the same thing. Exactly.
Yep. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about that. It's the brotherhood itself is already its own thing, but I always did feel like the 2019 class was special because, like you said earlier, um, there was nobody that you could really there's no like clicks or what, there was no like upper levels. Everybody was just kind of on the same level, and you knew
Everyone could
everybody.
talk to each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Most
could
definitely.
go into one class and mess with somebody and then go back. Yep.
Exactly.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I mean, if I were to put you on the spot, if they somehow get you at one of the open houses in the future, right, and they want you to talk to somebody that's, he's thinking about it, maybe he's like you, thinking about Garfield, maybe Seattle Prep, not sure
Yeah.
about O'Day though. I mean, if I have to put you in the recruiter chair, how do you talk about O'Day? What do you go to, say to this young man who, wants the best for himself?
I would say I'd be simple. I would tell him, I think some point in high school or some point in life, you want to become the best version of yourself. And I'd say you see yourself in a certain light by the end of your year, by the end of senior year, before going to college, you see yourself somewhere, whether that's I'm going to have offers or I'm going to be this and that. You just see yourself. I'll tell them that O'Day will not only give you the best chance, but it will guarantee that those dreams and aspirations will happen, especially if you work on them and use the resources that O'Day has. I can't say that for other schools just because I haven't been there, but I've just seen the people come out of O'Day. And I would say O'Day gives you the best chance to be the best, not even the best chance. O'Day, you buy into the O'Day system and the O'Day program, and I 1000% guarantee you that you will become the best version of yourself, a version that you've never thought before. And it may not be the version that you saw yourself, but guarantee it will be the best version. And your parents will be like, oh my gosh, like who is it? He knows how to tie his own tie. Like who is this? Like he knows how to do like just little stuff. That's just little stuff. But I would say O'Day is, when you buy into O'Day, you become the best version of yourself that you've never imagined or never thought you could be.
As you want to talk about that, and being the best version of yourself, I'm sure he's had some impact on that. Can you talk about perhaps a favorite Coach Kohler moment that you had over your 4 years at O'Day?
I can. So Coach Kohler probably didn't even remember this, but Coach Kohler's a really strict guy. Like he doesn't, by the book, tuck your shirt in. This is like in game. So if we're wearing black socks, we're in black socks. So I was a guy that certain games I didn't want to wear black socks, certain games I didn't want to do that. So my junior year, it was like I was starting, but I was the youngest kind of out of everybody. It was more of that 2018 class when we went to state and won.
Yep.
So I was kind of the youngest on the defense and things like that. So, I made my plays. Oh, sorry. Let me rewind. Sorry. Sophomore year, that's throwing me off, but then it goes to junior year. But sophomore year, I'm really young, so I'm barely playing, and we go to state, and I hate talking about it, but we end up losing to Kamayakin. And I remember I was just the last guy, one of the last guys out, just by nature, just having to be one of the last guys going out. And I remember I just looked at it and I was staring out there. And one thing about Coach Kohler, he's always like one of the last, if not the last guy that leaves the Tacoma Dome. He probably doesn't even know he does this, but he just does it. Like whenever we went to state, like he was always, for some reason, he was just always like one of the last guys to leave. And I remember I was standing there and I was staring like, okay, like sad, but I was like, I'm coming back. Like I'll be back. And I remember Coach Kohler grabbed me. He was like, don't even worry about this. Like what we have coming next year and what we can do is like something special. And then so fast forward to 2017 to 2018 year, winning state in the fashion that we won it. He came up to me. He's like, didn't I tell you, at the same door the same door because we walk out the same door to get to the bus. He's like, didn't I tell you? I'd probably say that was one of the craziest. Like, you remember that? And he reminded me, like, you told me this the exact time last year that we were gonna do this, and we literally did all the work, put all the work in, and then we did it. So yeah, I would say that moment.
It is funny you talk about how strict he is. As somebody, I knew him because my grandfather knew I'm a legacy. My grandfather went, my dad, my uncles. So I've known him for a while. It's so funny to see him. Oh, he's all nice when you're young and all that, and then you get to a day and still relatively strict, but there are moments you see in the hallway and a little bit soft. It's like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah,
just been grilling me for 30 minutes. But no, that is crazy to think about. And it was, to be at that Kamayakan game, to have that happen, and to get back. And I'll tell you, if we do this deep dive one day where I somehow get really big in sports journalism and someone like looks up I was not good at football. We'll get that straight right now. I'm not going to say I ever was, but I was part of that team for a couple months. To see what the team did, go out and kind of mop the floor with Beach, that was really cool. And to hear that adds more mystique to it. So to put a bow on it, I don't know if I should say the school that you talked about a lot at O'Day.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Meesh wasn't necessarily, at least for a good amount of high school, wasn't looking at UW, to my knowledge, right?
Not at all.
How did you end up there? Obviously, anybody can look up, see the preferred walk-on, but what steps brought us there? How did we get there?
Well, sad to admit it, this was me. I was an Oregon fan, probably up until my senior year of high school and some of my senior year of high school. I was an Oregon fan, and I know that was
in the past.
You regret that. Yeah, it's in the past. It's in the past, which is okay because we're here now. What happened was I was finishing up my school year. It was probably around December, and it was right after the season a bit, and I already had offers from Eastern Washington. I had Ivy League schools. I visited these schools, and I was about to, during January after the season is where you set your official visits to start visiting these schools. So I went to Eastern Washington. It was cool, and then I was planning on going to a whole. It was gonna be back to back to back. So I was going to go to Columbia. I was going to go to Yale. And I was just going to go back to back weekends every time and just decide. But I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go there or not. It wasn't anything wrong with it. It just didn't, you just have that feeling it is, this is something really nice that everyone likes, but for some reason you're the only one that doesn't really see. It's like, oh, this is nice, but for some reason I just don't see the same genuineness, if that's the correct word, how genuine it is to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So Coach Mays, who was a defensive line coach, hit me up and told me that a coach from the University of Washington wanted me to play for their team. And Coach Mays told them that they wanted me on a preferred walk-up. But Coach Mays was like, oh, no, he needs to be offered. They need to offer this kid, blah, blah, blah. But they were just kind of how I'll go into how that all played out. But so it was Coach Harris. He's currently at Georgia Southern right now, my dog. But he was the first guy that hit me up. And it was just Instagram, he's like, what's up, man? I would love to get on the phone with you and I'd love to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, UW. Okay. It was different because I was seeing it from a different perspective. I was a fan. So it's if you're Oregon, you automatically don't like UW. But now the coach for the DBs that coach one of the coach of the DBs from UW, who's also the assistant to the head guy that has produced multiple UWs to the NFL, they're here calling you. I'm like my whole, right then and there, everything flipped. It wasn't even should I answer it? Should I not? I'm like, oh no, I'm going to answer it. So that just shows I wasn't really a true Oregon fan. I was I just that just shows right there how fast I can switch. So no, I got on the phone with him and he was telling me no, we really love your tape and we love your game and we'd like to take you on official visits. We first want to give you a preferred walk on. So that was there. And he was like, it's up to you if you want to go, if you want to come, if you want to play. and he said that we would take an official visit. So I took an official visit. And I kind of just fell in love with the sense of being home. Going to a top college like UW and being home was good, but also just who my position coaches were and what they have done, and like they have a resume for it of sending guys to the league, and that's something that I wanted to do. And I didn't know how bad I wanted it at the time, but I knew that I wanted to do that. Like I was like, I could see myself playing in the NFL. And talking to Coach Peterson as well when he was here, because when he was the head coach, he was really big on family, education, being a man, kind of the same structures that O'Day had, just in more like it was like a larger scale, and more competitive in school, more competitive in football, just by nature. So I went on the official visit and I loved it, and I really wasn't. That was the first time I felt like comfortable with the school. Like I could see myself here, and I could see myself being here all the time. Like the other schools, I could see myself being there for certain moments. Like I see myself at some school, I can be here for the football season, like because I love playing football. But then I have to be on the off season. I have to play be here at school and things like that. Like when you're committing, it's good to think of all of that, like not just the football aspect, because football is literally 12 games guaranteed. Then you have a championship, then you have a bowl game, but then you have all school left. Like you're training like we're training right now, but we're not playing football.
Yep.
So like going to school just for football is kind of like, I understand, but like you need to see if you can see yourself here all the time. So that's the mindset I took. And that was the first school I saw myself as. And I told my parents, like, yeah, like this is the school I want to go to. And I was just confident in myself and my skills. I didn't even know about the whole, like, what it was to be a walk-on. I'm happy I didn't know either, but it was like, I didn't know like, oh yeah, like being a walk-on, you're barely, like, you may not play, da-da-da. I'm just like, I'm here, like, all right, like we're going to see who finishes. We'll see at the end. I'll see you at the finish line. We'll see like where everybody lands. So yeah, no, that was my decision.
You talk about, that sort of first year with Coach Peterson. I'll talk about him in a second, but on the website, on your like player profile, mentioned that you won the Iron Pup Award in 2019.
You did your research.
Hey man, I got to be prepared for this stuff,
Yeah, that's
so. Can you talk about that a little bit? What that might mean to those who might not be entirely sure?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the hardest worker out of the freshmen. So that's an example, but it's not based off of what like we see you doing extra work in the weight room, or we see you doing this. It's all the people who red shirts. So you redshirt your freshman, they just don't think you're ready yet. So they're going to give you time. All you're doing is in the weight room. So you lift a lot, you lift heavy during the season, you practice hard, lift heavy, just repeat, just to get you built up for like college football. So every day, every morning before the game, or it was about 4 hours before the game. So we had a game at 6, we'd have this competition at 2, just things like that. So we'd have morning games, whatever. And it's competitions, but it's like these not gruesome, but it's these tough workouts that it's like a competition that you have to do, and it's on a point system. And so a lot of it is, and the reason why it says like kind of like hard worker is because like you have to really push yourself mentally, because physically you can do it, but mentally coming as a freshman, you're like, this is crazy. Like I can't do this. So as a freshman, like, for you to push yourself to a certain limit to be like, I need to do this, like I can finish this. That's kind of what the whole thing was. So we did all these like crazy competitions and things like that, tug of war, like these gauntlets, like Olympic trials, like crazy stuff like that. And then it was just a matter of like the point system. And then I ended up being the winner because like throughout the time, like I had won my competitions, or I had been the highest scorer. So I did the work, and then they tallied all the points up, and I ended up winning. So that's how the Iron Pup thing went. Yeah.
No, it's funny because I mean, I have to do my research, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, look at that. So figured I'd go into that. You talked about Coach Pete. I know he wasn't there. I mean, the 1 year. How do you remember him? Because you talked about some of the values that he tried to instill as coach, and I know that he had an impact on a lot of players. And when I got the notification on my phone, I was like, hey, what's going on? And then seeing the players responding, hey, this was a guy who made a big impact, right?
Yeah.
What was your memory of Coach Pete?
So my memory, it's not as descriptive as others because I was with Coach Pearson for literally probably a quarter because I was a freshman. You had that football season, you had summer, and you had the football season, and then he had left.
Yep.
So I was only with him for a quarter. But just in that one quarter, one thing that I really do appreciate is he was really good at like separating football and like life. Like not everything had to be about football. And I feel like that's really important, especially like, yeah, we're college football players and we play on these big stages, but like we're really just kids. Like we just are just gifted and we're just gifted in this sport that people like to watch. But at the end of the day, we're still kids. We're still growing up. We're still trying to figure out our lives and figure out like everything that we want to do. So he was really good at separating like football and really just talking about like life. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? Like, if football doesn't work out, like that's a conversation that a lot of people don't like to have, but that's a conversation that needs to be had because realistically, not everybody's going to the NFL. That's just a lot of it. It's a small percentage of the people that go to the NFL, and those people are very blessed to be in that position to go to the NFL. So he was really good at just separating everything. Like so we talked about life, like we had all these like bonding activities that we did during fall camp and even during the season at times. And he just always kind of reminded us that like for the bigger picture, like don't just focus on football. Like there's a time for football, but there's also a time to just focus on life and to focus on like a lot of your family. You know, every Sunday we had to write down like what things we were thankful for. It didn't matter if we won a game, we lost a game, had a bad day. We come in the team meeting room, everybody has their notebook out, write 4 things you're grateful for, write them down. Then sometimes he'd sneak up on you and call your mom, like, hey, did your son call you today? Or did your son have to call you? No, I haven't called. He hasn't talked to me in the past. Da, da, da. What are you doing not calling your mom? And you're sitting there like, oh, like, how did you even know, like, I didn't call her? Like, that's weird. But it's just this little things like that, like making sure, like, he just made us think more about, he made us think about life as well as we were still able to think about football and really still lock in on football. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of coaches have. And he did it with ease. And I was there for the back end of his, like the last bit. So he probably like developed it. But when I got there, he had it down to a T on what he was doing, what he was trying to accomplish. And like he said, like you're built, like this is a built for life program. That was his thing. And that was also the thing that sold me on committing. But it's a built for life program. Like, yeah, we're going to get you ready for football, but all the stuff that you're going to learn when you're at UW will build you for life. So Coach Peterson definitely made an impact for sure. And just in that small bit of time.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about it, coaches instilling their system, whether it's, it'll be interesting for me to see, and everybody else that's a fan of it, what Coach DeBoer is going to have built. Right.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to hear about how different coaches instill their system, whether it's, like you're talking about with Coach Pearson, really building that family, and how some coaches, you hear a lot different things. So it is, as someone who's in there in that locker room, it is interesting to really poke and hear about that. I do want to talk about Coach Lake after this. But 2020, I mean, as a whole, obviously big mess, but the season too, for you guys, 4 games, I believe. How did that go? I mean, obviously protocols, shortened season, not knowing if you're playing a game. Through Meesh's eyes, how was the 2020 season? And obviously like to avoid having anything like that again, but how did that all play out through your eyes?
The 2020, that was just a crazy year overall, not even just the season, but I would say, I do commend Coach Lake for the way he handled it. Like he was always just telling us like, just being really optimistic, like things are going to get better. Like, keeping like, he was never like rushing people to come back. He was always like, make sure you get your quarantine. He's big on getting the vaccine, stuff like that, just protocols, little stuff like that, but also just keeping us on like, if we get a game canceled, like back to work, like that's all that means. So we had our first game was supposed to be against Cal, but California at the time, it was just a bunch of COVID cases, things like that. So we didn't get to play them. So we're like, man, and people are down. He calls everybody for a Zoom meeting. He said, I don't know why everybody's sad. Like, okay, like it is what it is. Back to work. Like we need to start. We're going to practice. We're not going to practice today, obviously, but we're going to practice tomorrow, practice hard, rest you guys as if like Sunday was your off day, back to Monday. And now we're preparing for Oregon State. So I appreciate how he was still like, he didn't panic from what we saw. So we could have been panicking under like everything, but he seemed like he didn't panic at all. He was like, all right, we're back to work. New scheme, new this. We need to continue to work hard. We know all the outside knows how everything is happening is like going crazy, but he was like, we need to work. Like the people who are going to work the hardest, like are going to benefit more from, or work the hardest and the smartest are going to benefit more when game time comes. So the 2020 season was fun. But it was weird playing in games and no fans. Like they used to have they had cardboard fans like in our stadium. No cheerleaders, no like cheering, like nothing. Just felt almost like practice, kind of. But it was more intense because we knew the game. Like you can't like run, you can't do this again. Like you can't redo this play. It's not practice. So the importance rose, but the atmosphere felt different because it wasn't like what we were accustomed to. Mm-hmm. But I would say, I mean, this will be a crazy story to tell our kids. Like, no, we literally played through a pandemic. Like that. I feel like that's it could be just because we're in it now. It doesn't seem crazy, but 20, 30 years down, you like, whoa, like we really played in that. And we just played like we were just kids. Like, it was all right, it was fine. Like we're gonna play football. So I would say the 2020 season was learned a lot. I would say something that was important for me. You'll probably touch on it later, like just like on how I got to where I was, but I got quarantined like December 12th. So I missed Christmas with my family because I had to quarantine. So just during that time being by myself, I kind of just had a self check-in, which I didn't have before. And I kind of had a self check-in and just a self-talk, like, do you feel like you're doing everything you need to like become the best football player, become the best defensive back you can? And, I think it's really key to have a self-talk with yourself. So I would say 2020 was crazy, but having that self-talk with myself is the reason why I'm at where I'm at now, because I talked to myself and really was serious. Like, are you doing everything you can to be like a top DB? Because if you're doing everything you can and you're still not a top DB, then that's a different story. But if you can sit here and genuinely say like, yeah, I'm doing everything I can. And I was honest with myself, like, I'm not. Like, yes, I'm doing certain things. Like I'm working hard, but there's still so much to learn and so much that I can do to get to where I am now. So I would say 2020, having that self-talk with myself, that was probably besides the pandemic, the biggest thing that happened to me was having that self-talk.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a key point you mentioned, being able to tell people, hey, we played in a pandemic. Just some of the photos where it's like, somebody celebrating and there's just nobody in the stand. It's just incredible to think about. It's just
most definitely.
So yeah, I mean, obviously not something to go back to, especially with the variant going around right now. Can you touch a little bit? I know you spoke on him, staying calm on the outside at least, but can you touch a little bit about Coach Lake? Because obviously, head coaching tenure didn't maybe go as planned, right? But as far as I can remember, I remember telling my dad, when he was like DB coach, defensive coach, that was a guy that was like, hey, here's a bigger reason why this program is successful, right? Like I'm sure it as a DB now, but all the guys that have gone to the league. Can you just touch on Coach Lake, both as a head coach and as a guy that you probably knew relatively well?
Yeah. So Coach Lake, one thing I'll start off by saying, like, Coach, I know a lot of fans like, I don't know how people hired like Coach Lake. Coach Lake his resume was for Coach Peterson to step down, like that would be the guy that would step up. Like there's no other option. Like that's almost common sense. Like just what he did and stuff like that. You're like, oh, Coach Lake would be the head coach. Like we didn't think of it at the time just because we didn't think Coach Peterson was going to leave. But then when everything settled down, they're like, Coach Lake head coach. We're like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. We weren't like, what, Coach Lake? Like no, like the resume he did and the people he sent to the league and stuff like that. Like it just didn't work out here, which is fine. It's just how life goes. But I first want to say that he was the heir, like he was the next up to be a head coach. So I would say, and he was well deserving of that because of what he did. I would say Coach Lake, he does have a different coaching style. He's more, I would say, demanding because he has a standard, and that standard doesn't drop for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are; it's a standard that he holds, and because it's a process that he has, and it's a recipe that he has, and it works. So he's not going to switch it for anybody, just simply because like I know this recipe. So if you buy into what I'm telling you and you really lock into what I'm telling you and you do extra work and things like that, like watch where you'll be. So yeah, I would say that was my freshman year, him as a defensive backs coach. This year, it was just because how everything happened, like everything just wasn't really going our way. How can I say it? Coach Lake, he was a really good coach. Like he was really good, like with schemes. He was really good with, like breaking down film, things like that. So it was really good for like you to talk to him, like, and he's a football junkie. Like he loved football. So he literally, you can go to him and like, hey coach, I was wondering, can I see this technique? Great. I have this in this folder. I have 30 clips right here. And he'll walk through you every clip. I've sat down with him and had meetings with him about like a certain press technique. And we'll both stand up and he'll be like, all right, this is how you need to play it. And he'll literally act like he's a defensive back. I'm a receiver. And he's like, this is how you need to do. And we would do that multiple times. And, he's really smart. He's very intelligent, especially when it comes to football. Like that's probably the smartest person I know when it came to football. But yeah, no, I just think it just didn't go out how it all planned. It wasn't all on him. Like people are like, oh, like Lake really like lost the season. Like, no, there's a lot of stuff went into it. He just he's the head coach, so that's why people want to blame him. It's like, yeah, it has to be the head coach. Like, so I gotta blame. Yeah, I have to blame somebody, so I'm gonna blame him. Yeah, no. Coach Lake was a great coach. I'm grateful for the stuff that he taught me. He like back to what I said about the standard, like it really trains you to be an NFL. It really trains you to be like an NFL guy. Like whether that's in the film room, whether that's being on time to things, whether that's like everything is literally to a standard because he's literally preparing you for the NFL. Like he's not recruiting kids just to have you here. Like he's recruiting you because I feel you can go to the NFL. So I'm going to do it. Like I'm gonna do my part, and now you need to do yours, and then like so it becomes a factory. Like that's kind of how like I feel like how deep the DBs are here at UW. Like it's just a factory. Every year you're gonna see one or two people going to the NFL. This year we had two. Last year we had like three. The year before that, like every year you're gonna see a DB going through the NFL, and all of them were coached by Lake. Like everybody has. It hasn't been a class yet that hasn't been coached by Lake yet. I mean, much more down the years, of course, but right now, my class, 2020. Well, I would say my class because I got directly coached by him. He was my defensive backs coach. Everyone else saw him as a head coach. So I'll say my class is the last class that was directly coached by Coach Lake. So yeah, no, I think really good coach, really smart, really intelligent, holds everyone to a standard. And yeah, no, I appreciate him for all the stuff he did.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you, I didn't expect Peterson to step down, but when it was announced that Lakewood, it was like, oh, that makes total sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, like
from that standpoint, and I know that, didn't work out. That's fine. Not everything is 100%. And it'll be interesting to see where he takes over next. But like I said, building up, like in the years prior to it, you knew it was like, hey, you got Jimmy Lake. There's a reason this defense is good, so at least that's how I saw it.
Yeah, like fans act like they weren't 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, we just got Coach Lake. Like this is gonna be like, and then they jump to he literally. I can't believe one person can do all this and all stuff like that. And it's like, like you don't even know like you don't know what's going on. Like everyone plays a role. It's not just him. I'm not saying he didn't play a role, but everyone plays a role in how things go. It's not just one person. And just 2 years ago, you were ride or die Coach Lake. Like, and now it's like, I knew this would happen, and I knew no, you didn't. You were, that's just how fans are and stuff like that. So it's just whatever.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you always got to look at it as a different perspective. That's why, when a firing like that happens or something, when a coaching position doesn't necessarily work out, it's really important for me to look at the players that they coached, because I mean, like you played for the guy, what's going on. Some dude on Twitter.
Thinks they
no
have an
idea.
Inside scoop, or like I just talked to so and so and they said,
man,
I'm here with them every day and we see everything.
Yeah, so no, that's why obviously it didn't work out, but it's at least for me, I'll remember Coach Lake in a positive light.
Yeah.
You talk about some of the guys that, which is a good transition. I thank you for that. Talk about some of the guys, NFL caliber talent that's been through that locker room. Can you
Mhm.
say that you've picked up on anything from some of those guys? I mean, not necessarily all of
Oh
them have
my
been
gosh.
teammates, but just to look at some of them, since around 19, Byron Murphy, Keith Taylor, Josiah Bronson, Levi Onwuzurike, Greg Gaines, Taylor Rapp, Miles Bryant, Jordan Miller,
Yeah.
Elijah
Yeah.
Molden. I mean, there's a lot of talent.
List goes on. Yeah.
And even in this year's draft, some of your teammates. So, I
Yeah.
mean, can you speak to, those guys and things you might have picked up from them? Obviously, I'm sure a
Uh
lot from the coaches, but, obviously from your teammates as well.
yeah, most definitely. So I never got to talk to like Byron Murphy, Taylor Rapp, and Greg Gaines because when I was taking my visits, they were preparing for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't, but Miles Bryant, that's a guy I still text now. Keith Taylor, Elijah Molden. I just was talking to them about, having a mentality of, I was just talking to Elijah Molden about having the mentality of going to the NFL, like where your mind space needs to be. It's less physical and it's more mental about your confidence, things like that. So learning from them, I think was a big reason because they're really good at setting the standard. Like we have a thing where it's like there's no drop off.
Mm.
Like that's the thing. Like if someone gets subbed out, and the next person comes in, like I expect you to do that, if more, and like showcase your talent. Like there should never be a drop off in skill. So like I feel like that's what makes UW so good as well, is because everyone's like, oh my gosh, like they just sent two guys to NFL. Like, oh, who's gonna be next? You're like, wait a minute. The two guys that are next, like, whoa, are they better than the other guys? Like, oh, that's how good they are. And like that's a standard that we hold each other to. And for those guys to see how like hard they work and things like that, it's very reassuring. Sorry, Guy Black. Hello, everything good?
No, you're good.
Oh yeah, okay. But yeah, to see guys work hard like that, it's very reassuring to then not only see them benefit from going to the league, but then also to see what they're doing. Because that just gives you reassurance that what they were doing, all the stuff that you saw, like it literally works. Like it's like it literally works. Like sometimes it's like, oh, like, should I do this? Should I do that? And I'm not saying do what they do to a T and you'll be there, but it's like just seeing like how they carry themselves. They're Elijah Molden, he's here at 6 a.m. getting his body right, all worked out before we even worked out. Then after that, doing extra work, then doing recovery, like make sure his body was right. Miles Bryant's always in the film room. KT always in the film room, always working on his technique. Like those are guys that I really looked up to, especially being younger and not really knowing too much about college football and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I learned a lot from all of them, and I still text them. And we played. I remember we played Stanford, and I was starting that game, and I called KT like, "Hey, how did you guard these Stanford receivers? Because they're big. They're like known to be like 6'6". That the average was like 6'6", 230. So that's a receiver. That's usually like a tight end, but they're playing on the outside. Yeah. So I text him. I call him like, "Hey, like, how did you guard this guy like that?" And then I got someone, because I don't know Byron Murphy, but I got one of my friends who was on the team, same team as them. He got in contact with Byron Murphy, and then Byron Murphy got in contact with me. And he was like, "This is how I guarded them. This is how you should guard them." And I did that, and it ended up working when we played Stanford. So it's like I always like. What's one thing I really appreciate about them is like they're always just open to answer questions. They're not like they leave and now it's like I can't talk to you anymore. Like they all texted me congratulations, like stuff like that. It's little text like that, but like it really means a lot though, just because like you really saw me, like you saw me, and like being at the status that you are, like sometimes you don't think that. I would say Trent, Kyler, those two are the ones I'm really close with. Those two are my guys. They've helped me just overall, just giving me little tips just to become a better defensive back, and us all working together this year because we all were all corners. So we were all working together and all just watching tape, watching film, learning different techniques, learning stuff like that. So I feel like we were learning off of each other. Like sometimes they would do something and I'm like, okay, like, all right, I'm going to put that into my game. I would do something. They'd be like, oh, what you did was cool. I'm going to add that to my game. So it was just like, we were just all working with each other. And those two guys, like also now, like I'm really proud of them. Like they're like trained for the combine, stuff like that. But like seeing where they're gonna fall in the draft and things like that, and seeing what they're gonna do, like it brings me joy to see what they're doing. And it also just motivates me because it's like, okay, like they did it. Now it's my turn. And then the guy behind me's turn. And then the guy behind me's turn. Like it's like just keep going and like just keep the standard of who we are, like being death row, being the top DBs in the country, like keeping that same standard and everyone's so open to like getting advice and everyone to giving advice as well. Like, and you always call them like, hey, like I have a question, blah, 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 blah. Oh, here, this is how we learned in the NFL. Like I text Elijah Molden about something and he'll show me NFL clips that he's learning in the NFL. Like, hey, try this and tell me if it works. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, they're giving me NFL advice and I'm still in college.
Yeah.
So yeah, I learned a lot from all those guys that I listed. And yeah, even just on a mentality aspect, especially with Miles Bryant, like him walking on, he was like, every day, like it's really like don't like treat every day like your last. Like you really have to invest. Like at the end of the day, it's like, did I invest in everything? Did I do everything I could to get better? And like you do that every day, and you make that a habit, and you create that habit of like blocking in and emptying the tank every day. Like where you're gonna fall is gonna be like, okay, like this is a good spot where I'm at. So yeah, no, all those guys are amazing. All those guys helped so much with me.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about it as long as I remember. I mean, we go back to some of the older guys like Kevin King, Sidney Jones. I mean, you look at down the list. I mean, it's incredible, and it's like each and every year, like Pro Football Focus puts out a thing where you'll see the Washington DBs are ranked so high. It's like, I mean, it's just like I think you nailed it. It's a standard.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I'm running a little close here. I've got another interview to do here in a second, but I want to mix this because I feel like they might tie to each other. At least I'm not sure because I'm going to hear it from you, obviously. But
yeah,
bring a new head coach in and Kalen DeBoer. We talked about it, bringing his guys into the staff and instilling his sort of system. You talked about those guys talking to you, some of the guys from other classes. I know that he said he wants UW to be a place where the alumni can come back and then still feel like home. What's your first impression been of him? I mean, I know it's kind of been a little bit new, right? But that and just the emotion and the thought process when you're sitting in that meeting and that slide comes up and your name's on it. There's some else on there. So how has it been, with Coach DeBoer and then getting that announcement from him?
I mean, I can't. I can only speak from like what has happened since like I got offered, because last week was like a discretionary week. So it was like you're there like optional. Like this is only our second day of like a true winter training. So last year the coaches were kind of roaming around, like you're getting to know people, like so you're lifting with the new strength coaches, but it's just like light stuff. But now we're getting into it now, like where it's full go now. But before it was kind of like, hey guys, like I just want to introduce myself. So Coach DeBoer, I mean, like I said, yeah, I appreciate him for giving me the offer. I mean, him recognizing that and seeing like you need to be on scholarship. I do really appreciate him for that. He's brought in some guys. Like, I mean, that's all I can really say, because I feel like it's gonna be so much better when we get to August and we get to September and you guys see. But no, he brought in a crazy strength staff and different coaches from his old staff from Fresno State, and then also coaches from that he used to work with from across the country. I'm excited, and he's a great guy. He's almost like, I wouldn't say he's like Coach Peterson, but his values are. They're two different people, but they have the same values. You need to call your parents. Like when we eat lunch all together and stuff like that, like you're gonna talk to the coaches, and our coaches are gonna bring their coaches are gonna bring their families around. It's like we're all really gonna be connected and together. And he's locked in on school. Like we have like check-ins. Like you need to get your grades right. You miss something, like you'll be punished for it. Like you're not gonna miss tutoring. You're not gonna miss class. Like he holds everyone to a standard. So yeah, I'll say he has the same values. And it's funny because Coach Peterson helped with like the whole like process of getting him. So it's like he probably like somebody who's kind of the similar as him, like to an extent, things like that. So no. Coach DeBoer, he seems like he's a really great coach. I haven't like been coached by him yet because just we haven't got to see it and stuff like that. But he it looks like he knows what he's doing, and the staff and the people that he brought in, like they're all confident in what's going to happen, and they're all confident in like what they can do. He's literally, I think, won everywhere he's been to. Like he doesn't have oh, he did bad here. Like everywhere he's been to, he's gotten teams better. So just hearing that, that's just like, and especially in the state that we were last year, we're like, okay, like we're bought in. We're like, all right, let's do this. Like, what are we gonna do? And he's a great coach. I'm excited to to be specifically now to be coached by him and like learn the stuff that he learned, go by like because every coach coaches differently. So like go by the way like his coaching way is and things like that, and just buying in and seeing where we land. I think we're gonna be good. I think I don't even want to say that. I think I just can't wait for everything to kind of gel and everything to come together. But yeah, no, Coach DeBoer, great guy, great person overall, great coach, and yeah, we're all excited.
It's interesting. Kind of ties into what you talked about at O'Day. I mean, guys, staff that care about you and they keep you in check. I mean, so
Yeah,
I appreciate having you on. I know that
no
you're
problem, man.
done with tutoring, so
Yeah.
hope I didn't run into anything with you
Oh
there.
yeah, no.
But for those who don't know, I think we talked about Meesh and I, same class, not super close, but really cool to see where he's at right now and to be in that list of Husky DBs and see what happens next year. So I always put socials and everything in the description. Is there anything you want to leave off on, or just kind of looking forward to next year?
Yeah, Husky Nation, it's gonna be a year. So just know we're determined. We're determined, especially for next year.
Meesh, I appreciate you, and I'm excited to see you back out
Appreciate
in the
you too,
field.
Charles. Yeah, most definitely.